Okay, so today we are celebrating. Hello, my flock, by the way. Today we are celebrating the 105th birthday of probably one of the greatest artists, one of the greatest writers in comicdom, in the whole entire world of comics. I'm talking about Jack the King Kirby. We're going to talk about his contributions to both DC and Marvel. And beyond that, we are going to be talking about his history of comics, and we're going to show some interviews about people who talk about Jack Kirby, and some interviews, hopefully, if I find some, about interviews that have Jack Kirby in them. I believe the very first interview I have seen from one of his um, interviews long ago. Um, Hello, Cherokee Outlaw. Shout out to Cherokee Outlaw. Um, Keep on being positive, and thank you for subbing to me on both your main channel and your um, current and your secondary. Um, yes, hello, my flock. Um, Appreciate you coming in. Um, Keep the positivity going. You know, don't let the negative people get you. You know, um, 'cause that's what I'm trying to do. You know, every step of the way, just trying to get all that positivity and getting all that negativity to bother me. But anyway, um, so back to Jack Kirby. So one of the interviews that I've seen from him, believe it or not, was on a um, was on a bonus um, was on a bonus reel of bonus features of a full moon DVD that had a bunch of full moon movies in it. I don't remember which one it was. Um, if I can find it, maybe I can. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, it was weird because full moon just like trauma. I'm gonna hopefully gonna much like trauma, and I've already went into dipped my toes into canon. Um, or low budget film industries way back when. Actually, trauma and Full Moon are the only survivors. Sadly, canon, as I said, is the casualty. But anyway, so it was weird seeing an interview on Jack Kirby, of all people. Jack Kirby, of all people, interviewing in a bonus feature of a let's say trauma. God, um, God, it was so long ago. Um, and like when I seen it, it was like fucking weird. But anyway, um, yeah, it was weird. But anyway, we're gonna get back to the birthday, um, because he has Jack Kirby has um, influenced influenced a lot of writers, made a lot of contributions. Like I said, to Marvel and DC, no, the ones that you, some of the things that you see right now, you may not know is because of Jack Kirby. Well, actually, Jack Kirby and Joe Simon, um, which the duo was named um, Simon and Kirby, um, which Kirby was the writer and artist, and I believe Joe Simon did um, some writing, some. Well, he did write, but I believe he did some artistry. He drew and penciled as well. And but yeah, it's the main duo. It was the main duo of that time, all the way to the 30s, to like the Silver Age comics of the 50s and 60s, to beyond that. So yeah, let's get this set up, and I'll be right back in a bit, and we'll start. So we got a lot to go through, and I'm really excited for this. Huge fan of Kirby, really huge fan. So be back in 30. So Jack Kirby, born Jack Kurtzberg, was born August 28th, 1917, and died sadly passed February 6th of 94. I was actually 2 years old when he passed. He was an American comic book writer, artist, editor, widely regarded as one of the medium's most major innovators and one of its most prolific and influential creators, and still to this day is. He grew up in New York City and learned to draw on cartoon figures by tracing characters, comic strips, and editorial cartoons. He entered the nascent comic industry in the 1930s, um, but before that, he actually served in World War II. Um, and and there was a story of him doodling um, during war times, and one of the captains or majors saw that he was an artist, and so he pulled Kirby um, from ranks, and he became a map maker um, during wartime. So that's pretty cool. Um, He entered the industry in the 1930s, drawing various comics featuring under pen names including Jack Curtis, before ultimately setting on Jack Kirby in the 1940s. Of course, his writing editor and longtime friend Joe Simon created both of them created superhero characters. One you may know um, from today and has had multiple movies, serials made made um, by him. Of course, is Captain America. That's right. The Star Spangled Avenger was created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby and Joe Simon. Um, to turn off my camera, but anyway, yeah, he really did have it going on. Um, he was really a good comics artist. Um, so they made Captain America during the time when Marvel was actually went by the name Timely Comics, and they were founded in 1939, um, defunct in 1950. They were rebranded as Atlas Comics and then Marvel Comics um, afterward. So yeah, um, back then it wasn't. Back then it wasn't Marvel yet. It was Timely Comics. But anyway, um, Kirby teamed up with Simon, creating numerous characters for the company and for the National Comics publications, later becoming DC Comics. So um, here's some other characters that you may not know that he created. He created the mighty Thor. That's right, he created Thor. He not only created Thor, but he also created the Avengers. He created Black Panther. He created, of course, Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four, in the 1960s. And I actually have this first comic. It was made in 1961. The cover was, of course, by Jack Kirby, and an unconfirmed inker. I don't know who the inker was. I was gonna say Joe Simon, but I'm not really sure. But I actually have this cover right here somewhere, and I got it as a paperback in a dollar store long ago. Yeah, they are good memories. He created the Avengers. He created, of course, the New Gods. And from the New Gods, he created New Genesis. He also created Apocalypse, where Darkseid and the other New Gods basically roam. So therefore, he actually created Darkseid. But of course, back then, actually, here, let me show you. guys. Of course, back then, in his very first appearance, let me get a good photo. If I can find it. There we go. This is New Gods. He also created Calabec. He created Granny Goodness. Um, Orion. He created Desaad. All of these characters, all these gods. Um, so yeah, it's pretty cool. Uh, but of course, like I said back then, um, Darkseid was actually purple. Darkseid was purple back then. And yeah, he made all of those characters. He made Black. He made Black Racer, um, the new god of death, one of the many gods of death. He made um, he made the bug. Yeah, he made the bug. He made the light ray. You know, Orion, as I said. Um, Let me show you some classic panels here. Um, I'm not really sure. Let me see if he did. Um, that's a good question, actually. No, actually, he was created by Bill Everett. Um, but yeah, I kind of would have thought that he would have too, though. But anyway, some of Kirby's designs was no problem. Because I kind of like all of this, especially the old stuff. But some of Kirby's art was really good. However, he did have some times where his art was well, not kind of weird looking, um, you know, um, like sometimes it didn't make sense, you know. For instance, people may not know this, but people, well, not really like that, but I'd say on the weird side. People may not know this, but way back when, um, the Black Panther that you know now wasn't all in black armor as he was back then. So this is Black Panther by Kirby, and you see here that's who he would have been. This is what he would have been. This is what he became. So again, I kind of like the change. You know, because here we have. Let me show you. Here we have T'Challa in his actual costume. You know, in Kirby fashion. You know, um, like for this instance, this is typical Kirby fashion panels. A Wakanda warrior hidden strength that's reserve of strength that serves him when all seems lost. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Um, much like the second design that Bill Finger did on Batman. You know, you would have had a way different Batman than if um, Bill Finger didn't change it. So, of course, we have the classic Avengers here. As I said, um, he not only created Thor, but he created Loki, he created Ant-Man, he created Wasp, and here we have their very first appearance. He also created the Incredible Hulk, and here we have their very first appearance fighting Loki. And of course, we have Iron Man in his golden armor, classic Hulk, Kirby Hulk, and classic Kirby Thor. And of course, we have right here the Hulk's first appearance. The strength of man of all time. Is he man or monster, or is he both? Fantasy as you like it. And that is the Hulk in his first appearance, created by Jack Kirby and Joe Simon. I believe it's Joe Simon that was in here as well. Here we're going to look at some panels from Kirby. We have here 10 killer panels from Jack Kirby, and this is by Marvel.com. But of course, we're going to be looking at some more. Yeah, um, the huge build of the original Iron Man Um, and he was Kirby was honestly um, doing Iron Man. He was doing Hulk. He was doing um, he was doing Journey into Mystery, and he was doing all of these books plus Avengers. You know, and of course this was from Black Panther number 10, page 17, panel 2. Captain America number 112, issue 112, page 13. He also Jack Kirby and Joe Simon also created Bucky Barnes, by the way. The Eternals, no, number 2, 2 to 3. And basically the Eternals are basically so Jack Kirby created Fourth World um, in DC Comics, which is the New Gods, and every god in there. Like I said, Darkseid, Orion, Calabac, what have you. And then he went and to Marvel and decided to basically kind of rip off his New Gods, I would say, and he created the Eternals, which basically the Eternals are basically the New Gods of Marvel. Fantastic Four, page 12, number 2. And we have Ben, Sue, and Ben is holding Mr. Fantastic. You know, he not only created the Fantastic Four, but he also created their enemy, Doctor Doom, and Mole Man, who they fought in their very first appearance was actually Mole Man. Um, and here we have Fantastic Four number 51, page 1, The Man, the Monster, classic, um, classic Ben Grimm, blue, the ever-loving blue-eyed thing, um, Jack Kirby, penciler, Joe Simon, inker. That's why I kind of thought that the other mysterious inker was Joe Simon, uh, and Artie Simic as letterer. And of course, we have Galactus, the Devourer of Worlds. It was also created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, as well as his Herald, the the Silver Surfer, which appeared in Fantastic Four. Um, which, if you've seen the Rise of the Silver Surfer, it's basically that whole entire line. Yeah, they really are. They really are. But I hope they don't mess up Doctor Doom. I really don't. I really hope they don't. Fantastic Four number 87, page 5. Of course, we got classic Doctor Doom here. And, of course, Doctor Doom always says, Doctor Doom, he always says himself always in the third person. Journey into Mystery. This is actually his take as on Namor, where the adventures are fighting Namor. Journey into Mystery number 112, page 4, panel 1. Of course, this is Thor, and this is Ego, I believe. Yeah, yeah, Ego. Okay. I had to make sure. He also created Ego, the Living Planet, which, by the way, actually appears in Guardians of the Galaxy #2, Volume 2. Um, of course, Ego here is a living planet. He is not an eternal like he is. Well, he's a living planet in the MCU, but um, he's not an eternal like he is in the MCU. But anyway, this is Thor number 161, page 5. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is first um, the first appearance of Ego, the Living Planet. I think I'll have to check that out. He also created Dapper Dinosaur um, from Marvel, and of course, there's classic dinosaurs right here. Um, so yeah, and of course, we're gonna go through some other panels. He made loads of creations. You see here, he created Yuto, the Watcher, who first appeared in a Fantastic Four issue where he broke his silence and told the Fantastic Four coming of Galactus. Hello, Donna. How are you? And of course, we have a classic Kirby monster transformation in typical Kirby fashion. But let me show you guys. He also created the Kree and the Kree Sentinels. Um, like I said, created of loads of characters. We have a classic Fantastic Four panel. I believe that is I just um, I just fucking I had a brain for it. Alicia Masters. I think that's Alicia Masters. And here she has Susan. She's gone, but where how? And it is time for the world to meet the Invisible Girl. And back then she was called the Invisible Girl, not the Invisible Woman. Um, of course, we have this amazing panel right here. We have the Fantastic Four. We have everyone. You know, beautiful panel. Um, Chris, all of his also he created this destroyer. So yeah, again, he created honestly all the Norse gods. He created the Norse gods. He created the new gods. I believe he created the Greek gods. I'm not really sure, but He made these celestials. Yeah, yeah. So not only created the Marvel's first family, but he also created the X-Men. That's right, he created Beast right here, created Kitty Pryde, uh, Iceman. Back then, he was wasn't the Iceman that you know. He was basically the snowman character, basically. And this is classic '60s. Angel. Um, Actually, that's not Kitty Pryde. That was Jean. Sorry. Jean actually joined the X Men. I believe in first issue. I think created Storm, created Magneto. He created the Brotherhood of Mutants. He created Blob. He created Toad. He created Mystique. He created all these characters. Like I said, all these characters. Um, and he created. He not only created them, but they're later. He created Professor X. No problem. I hope you get better, Donna. Um, Now let me go ahead and look at some Kirby sci-fi art. Actually, let me show you. First, we have here classic Odin. Um, you know, we have him again here. You know, every panel, his colors change. Every panel. Um, for instance, right here, of course, we have a show of Odin's anger. I have spoken. And of course, he blasts. I'm not really sure. I think it's Thor. Of course, here we have Doctor Doom, and right here is the Silver Surfer, and this is where Doctor Doom steals Silver Surfer's energy in Secret Wars, the original Secret Wars. And now I want to show you um, something pretty cool. Um, he was actually going to go to DC and actually bring the Norse gods into DC, and these are actual pa- art art that was not published, that wasn't published, um, and yeah, I really like it. I've seen this. I haven't seen this in years, but when I first seen it, I loved it. You know, again, this is unpublished art. So we have Sigrid here. Of course, we have picture. Not really sure who that is. But we have here is Balder, and of course we have Heimdall, which again would have been all these would have been the Norse gods of DC DC Comics, and look at them; they're so beautiful, especially Balder here, Sigurd here. But yeah, unpublished um, unpublished art by um, by DC Comics. I don't know. I have no idea why that is. But here we actually have a really good different coloring of it, and this is the ones that I actually saw. It was on Facebook long ago. But yeah, this now I have the different color. Oh, it's beautiful. Here.
It's 8:09 p.m.
All right. I don't know why my fucking earphones are doing that, but yeah. Um, Look at that. Colors. It's just classic Kirby. You know. I do like these sketches better. But yeah. Now we're going to get into Valhalla. I'm going all over the place right now. Um, a really good Galactus here. Here we have, I believe, Valhalla. And like I said, This is typical Jack Kirby, with all the beautiful colors and all the just amazing sci-fi. I think one of my many regrets is, honestly, not seeing Jack Kirby or knowing him. But of course, as I said, um, I was just born, so you know. But anyway, we're gonna look up some cool sci-fi art. Of course, here is his Watcher. Like I said, just amazing art, you know. And of course, everywhere he would have weapons and just armor and you know, um, places that are just sci-fi. It's beautiful. But yeah, that was his Yuto the Watcher. Um, Here's some more Jack Kirby. Beautiful, beautiful art, you know, just amazing. Of course, we have Black Bolt here, leader of the Eternals. He also created the Eternals as well. As I said, Medusa, um, you know, Lockjaw, uh, all of those characters. After this, we're going to get back to the history portion. But he not only created um, gods, but he also created a demon. He created Etrigan, the demon, and his counterpart, alter ego, Jason Blood. He was actually the one who wrote for Etrigan and he was the reason why the demon is called Etrigan is called the rhyming demon. So we have up here, we have Merlin, Etrigan's half brother. So yeah, it's pretty cool, you know. Anyway. So now we're going to look into every creation that Kirby has made in DC Comics and in Marvel, and we will show you some other things. I will show you some other things. Pretty cool. Um, so we have a lot to go through. Like I said, the guy has made loads of characters. Um, of course, Aerodisc, Aero Troopers, Agents of Axis, Albert von Kilowatts, Alfred Twittet, Al Widow, Andre Chevard, Angry Charlie, Animal People, which basically are from the comic of Kai Mundi. We'll show him in a bit. Malady, Anthony Rodriguez Jr., Anti-Life, which Darkseid wants to get his hands on. Apes, Apocalypse, Apocalyptians, Arna, Astro, Hardus, Atlas. And let me show you his Atlas, because his Atlas is amazing. Hopefully this is the actual Atlas. Hold on. Let me go. Excuse me. So, of course, here is his Atlas, Atlas the Great. I first saw him when in a comic made in the 2000s where he basically beat the living shit out of out of Superman. But yeah, let me get back to that. He created Dr. Bedlam, Becca, the Omega beams, the Omega effect, Source Wall, Benjamin Boxer, again from Comundi, uh, Bernadette, Big Barda, of course, and Scott Free. Um, lots of Big Bardas. Big Bear, Billy Dollar Bates, Black Racer, of course, as I said already. Book of Souls. Black Racer, Boom Tubes. Like I said, all of these things, you know, all of these things he's created. Look at all this. Um, he also took a Golden Age character and flipped it on its head. Flipped this, what you knew about the character on its head, and basically just made it this new character, well, kind of new character from what you know from the Golden Age. It was different. And who I'm talking about is actually a second. Called the Sandman. He also he also um, created his sidekick as well. Um, here we have Sandman right here. Now, you might be wondering um, what I meant about him basically flipping the character on its head. So here we have. Oh my fucking God. Seriously.
Chill.
Now, this is the same character, right? This was a mystery, one of the many mystery men in the um, title of Mystery Men in the 1930s, 1940s. It was just this guy in a cape um, or a mask or domino mask or whatever costume and just beats up people. So here, this is the Golden Age Sandman, and that was the one that Kirby drew was the Silver Age Sandman. It's the same person, but instead of having a gas gun and gas pellets and wearing a gas mask, he's basically um, a guy in a superhero cape and costume that goes into people's dreams. You know? So as I said, he basically flipped the character on its head, and this a character that appeared in 1939, and basically made him basically this superhero with superpowers. I could go into people's dreams. So he also created the team of the Forever People, which are basically new gods from New Genesis. So, like I said, he has made loads of people, loads of creations. But of course, it wasn't always superheroes, demons, and sci-fi. He also did a horror anthology. a horror anthology by DC Comics um, by the name of Black Magic. I actually read this in a DC omnibus of Jack Kirby's work, and I really liked it. It had a couple issues in there, and like I said, it was a really good horror anthology. It was my first ever horror comic media that I've ever, got in contact with. But yeah, it was really good. And it was completely different from the stuff that I know Kirby from. You know, um, I just knew him from the superheroes, the sci-fi, and all of that. Give me a second. But sadly, these series was a limited series. Um, but yeah, now we're going to get back into the history of Jack Kirby. After I did all that. So early life. Jack Kirby was born Jacob Kurtzberg on August 28th, 1917, at 147th East Street on Lower East Side of Manhattan, New York City, where he was raised. His parents, Rose Bernstein, Benjamin Kurtzberg, were Austrian Jewish immigrants, and his father earned a living as a garment factory worker. In his youth, Kirby desired to escape his neighborhood. He liked to draw and sought out places he he could learn more about art. Essentially self-taught, Kirby cited among his influences comic strips artists Milton Caniff, Hal Foster, and Alex Raymond, as well as such editorial cartoonists as C.H. Sykes, Ding Darling, and Roland Kirby. He was rejected by the Education Alliance because he drew too fast with charcoal, according to Kirby. He later found an outlet for his skills by drawing cartoons for newspapers The Boys Brotherhood Republic, a miniature city on East 3rd Street, where street kids ran their own government. Age 14, Kirby enrolled at the Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, leaving after a week. I wasn't kind of the student that Pratt was looking for. They wanted people who would work on something forever. I didn't want to work on a project forever. I intended to get things done. Career entry into comics 1936 and 1940. Kirby joined the Lincoln Newspaper Syndicate in 1936, working there as a newspaper comic strip in a single panel of advice cartoons such as Your Health Comes First, under a pseudonym Jack Curtis. He remained until later in 1939, where he began working for the theatrical animation company Fletcher Studios as an in-betweener, an artist who filled in the action between major movement frames on Popeye cartoons at the same time in 1935. So I'm sure he worked on Fletcher's Superman. I'm not really sure about that, but anyway, the studio before the Fletcher strike, 1937, went to London for Fletcher. He called from Fletcher, I have to get out in a hurry because I couldn't take the kind of thing, describing it as a factory in a sense. Like Father's Factory, they were manufacturing pictures. Around the time the American comic book industry was booming, Kirby began writing and drawing for comic book packager Eisner and Igner. One of the handful of films created comics on demand for publishers. Though the company, Kirby did what he remembered as the first comic book wrote for Wild Boy magazine and included such strips as Sci-Fi Adventure, The Diary of Dr. Hayward, under the pseudonym Curtis Davis. The Western graphic writer featuring Wilton of the West as Fred Sender and the swashbuckler adventure Cordonaut of Cristo as Jack Curtis. And the humor features Abdul Jones as Ted Gray, and Sacco the Sea Dog as Teddy, all variants of Jumbo Comics and other Eisner and Gray clients. His first used the surname Kirby as a synonym of Lance Kirby in two Lone Rider Western stories in Eastern Color Printing's Famous Funnies in issue number 63 and 64 on October and November of 1939. He ultimately settled in a pen name Jack Kirby because it reminded him of an actor James Cagney. However, he took offense to those who suggested he change his name in order to hide his Jewish heritage. Kirby moved on to the comic book publisher and newspaper syndicate Fox Features Syndicate, earning a then reasonable $15 a week. He began to explore super narrative with the comic book The Blue Beetle, published from January to March of 1940, starring a character created by the same name Charles Nicholas, a house name that Kirby retained for the 3-month-long strip. During this time, Kirby met and began collaborating with cartoonist Fox editor Joe Simon, who, in addition to his staff work, continued to freelance. Simon recalled in 1988, "I loved Jack's work, and the first time I saw it, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. He asked if we could do some freelance work together. I was delighted and took him over to my little office. We worked from the second issue of Blue Bolt through about 25 years. After leaving Fox and collaborating on the premiere issue of Fawcett Comics' Captain Marvel Adventures, March 1941, the first solo title for the previous drawing styles, the duo were hired on staff as published magazine by C.C. Beck. Was told to mimic, C.C. Beck's strong style. And they were hired by published magazine publisher Martin Goodman's Timely Comics, later becoming, of course, as I said before, Marvel Comics. There they created Captain America, the Star-Spangled Hero, as well as Bucky Barnes, who became the company's Simon, who became the company's heir with Kirby as art director, said he negotiated with Goodman to give the duo 25% of the profits from the features. The first issue of Captain America was released in 1941. Sold out the day in the second issue print run was set at over 1 million copies, and the title's success established the team as a notable creation force in the industry. After the first issue was published, Simon asked Kirby to join the Timely Comics staff as the company's art director. So then the pair revamped Sandman and Adventure Comics and created the superhero Manhunter, by the way, in 1942. And they began the Boy Commandos, Newsboy Legion, Star Spangled, featured in Star Spangled Comics. But then in 1946, after the war, so this is after the war, Simon arranged work for Kirby himself at Harvey Comics, where he created such titles as the Kid Gang, Richard Boy, Exploration Comics, the Kid Gang, Western Boys Ranch, 3D, the Superhero Comics Stuntman, and then developed what they found of 3D movie Captain 3D. Simon and Kirby additionally freelanced for Hillman Predicles, the Criminal Faction comic Real Clue Crime, and the Crestwood publication Justice Trap for the Guilty. During that time, basically, Kirby went past the whole superhero, making superheroes and everything, and he decided to make romance comics. So he created Young Romance, and of course, here's the issue. Here's the cover of that. So yeah, Kirby actually made some romance comics, but of course that was, in the 50s. And then he made the spinoff Young Love, bitter that Timely Comics 1950 Operation Atlas Comics to relaunch Captain America in the new series in 1954, Kirby and Simon decided to then rip off their version of their creation of Captain America, and they created the Fighting American. Has a shield, you know, in Star Spangled get up. Um, you know, so they just decided to make, basically just they were like, well, they're Marvel's screwing us, so we'll just rip off Captain America. Lots of people think that Rob Liefeld actually this was a Rob Liefeld kind of ripoff, but it wasn't. Rob Liefeld actually revamped Fighting American actually in the 90s. But no, this was actually created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, writer and artist, and Joe Simon and Jack Kirby, artist. So yeah, they decided to just basically rip off their creation from Marvel, because Marvel just decided to just completely fuck them. So I'm gonna go ahead and show some comics, more comics that he actually made, and then we'll get to the interviews, and then I'll end it there. But I'm not going to read the whole entire history. Well, you know what? Actually, I will. Fuck it. I'll just spitball it. So after Simon, as the urging of the Crestwood salesman, Kirby and Simon launched their own company, Mainline Productions, searching a distribution dealer with the Leader News. In 1953 or early 1954, subliming space from their friend Al Harvey's production at 1860 Broadway Mainline, which existed for 1954 to 1955, published four titles: The Western Bullseye, Western Scout, The War Comics Foxhole, became EC Comics, and Atlas Comics were having success with their comics by promoting their as being written and drawn by actual veterans. And Love became an early romance comic. Young Love was still being widely imitated in the crime comic Police Trap, which claimed to be based on genuine accounts by law enforcement officials. After to rearrange the public artwork from an old Crestwood story in Love, Crestwood refused to pay the team, who sought to audit Crestwood finances. Upon review, the pair attorneys stated the company owed them $130,000 for the work done for the past 7 years. Crestwood paid them $10,000 in addition to their recent delay payments. The partnership between Kirby and Simon became strained, and Simon left the industry for career in advertising while Kirby continued to freelance. He wanted to do other things as stuck to comics, Kirby recalled in 1971. It was fine. There was no reason to continue the partnership, and we parted friends. At this point in the 1950s, Kirby made a temporary return to the former Timely Comics known as Atlas Comics, or known as Marvel Comics. Frank Giocha talked to Stan Lee and suggested he could get Kirby back here to pencil some stuff while freelancing for National Comics publications in DC Comics. Kirby drew 20 stories for Atlas in 1956-1957, beginning with 5-page mini-field in Battlegrounds 14. Of course, he created Black Rider, Fu Manchu like Yellow Claw, but in 1957, distributors' troubles caused the Atlas implosion that resulted in several series being dropped and no new material being assigned for many months. It would be following year where Kirby returned to the nascent Marvel. For DC, however, Kirby co-created with writers Dick and Dave Wood the non-superpowered adventure according The Challengers Unknown in Showcase number 6. He also created the anthology House of Mystery. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Kirby drew slightly more than 600 pages, which included 11 6-page Green Arrow stories and World Finest and Adventure Comics that in Rarity Kirby inked himself. Kirby recast the Archer as a sci-fi fiction hero, moving him away from his Batman farmer roots. But in the process, aligning Green Arrow co-creator Mort Wessner. He not only created all those characters, but he went back to Marvel and he created Fin Fang Foom. He created The Fly with Joe Kirby. With Joe Simon. It's pretty cool. And also created a evil tree creature by the name of Groot. If I can get my... That's right, he created Groot. But during that time, Groot was this huge, hulking, giant tree monster. So yeah. And that was in Tales to Astonish number 13. This is Marvel's Silver Age. He created, of course, Hulk, Thor, the X-Men, Magneto, Doctor Doom, Yuto the Watcher, Ego the Living Planet, the Inhumans, Black Panther. He penciled the first Spider-Man story by Steve Ditko. He brought back the Submariner. He created the Fantastic Four. He created Galactus and Silver Surfer. He went to DC and made, the Fourth World Saga in 1971 with the New Gods. All these characters that he created. He also created Kamandi, the Demon, Cobra. Worked on the Losers. He recreated Sandman. He made Manhunter. He also created OMAC, the One Man Army. He created Kaimundi, the last boy on Earth. But yeah, now I'm gonna go ahead and get to the other comics. Give me a second. And then we're gonna do some interviews. My phone's about to die, so that's why I'm kind of getting, being fast paced. So here we have some some comics made by Kirby. If I can just focus a bit. So we have Atlas, we have 2001: A Space Odyssey, which, by the way, I will actually look at because the art in that is fucking fantastic. Alarming Tales, All Winter Comics 770th, anniversary special. Amazing Adventure, 1961, 1971. Amazing Spider-Man's Epic Collection. America's Best TV Comics. Ant-Man and Giant Man. Ant-Man Larger Than Life. Astonishing Tales. Beware. Black Magic. That was in the 50s. It has 50 issues there and 9 issues in the 73 revival. Black Panther, Black Rider, Blue Bolts. Hold on. Boy Commandos, Bring Back the Bad Guys, Bullseye, Captain 3D. Give me a second. Let me try and fix this. Captain America, all these comics, Captain Victory, Captain Marvel Adventures, Challengers of the Unknown, you know, Challengers of the Unknown, Countdown Special, Jimmy Olsen, Countdown Special, Kai Mundi. God, this really sucks. There we go. Countdown Special, The Atom, Flash, Countdown Special, The New Gods, all of these Dark Side War, and it just keeps going, But he was known as Jumping Jack Kirby. He was known as Jolly Jack Kirby. Then later on, he was known as Jack the King Kirby for all of his works. We're going to do a bit of a couple interviews here. First one is Alan.
Yeah. That was a little bit embarrassing. I did have a sort of somebody got in touch with me from a radio show and said, "Look, I hope I haven't put my foot in it, but I was doing an interview with Stan Lee, and he said the person he'd most like to talk to is you. So I'm giving him your contact details." And the best writer in the English language that had ever been. I had huge respect for him when I was a kid. I thought that he was possibly the best. Wasn't Jolly, and you find out why. English language that had ever been. But as I said earlier, when you start in the industry, you find out that Jack wasn't jolly, and you find out why. And you find out that Steve wasn't sturdy, and you find out why. And you find out why Stan was smiling.
That was interview about basically the allegations of basically Stanley stealing everything from these writers. But anyway, that's the only mention from Jack Kirby. But here we have one from Frank Miller.
So you're at the
Give me a second. I gotta get my phone charged.
Centennial of Jack's birth. His contributions to comics is immeasurable. And I know that he had an impact on you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Jack and what the King meant to comics.
Do you have an hour? Jack was not just a formidable talent. He was remarkable in that across his decades-long career, at every turn, he would usher in a new era and a new language for comics. He redefined the love comic, which most people don't even remember that he did. The old Simon and Kirby love comics they're very beautiful and very sweet, and the drawing in them is quite sensitive, which you don't think of from the Wagner of comics. And then he had a huge and out of that came Captain America. Then of course there's Marvel Comics, where he was the visual style and energy behind Marvel Comics. And you know, with Stan Lee, they created an entirely new way of looking at comics. Even after that, he went on to create the New Gods, which I think is largely his unsung epic. I think that stuff is remarkable, and there's no denying its influence on Star Wars, for instance. So Jack was just a gift that kept on giving.
So that was Frank Miller. Another amazing artist. Amazing, writer. He was a very good writer. I don't think anymore. And here we have actually a very rare interview of Jack Kirby himself. And this is the interview that I actually first saw Jack Kirby do. As I said earlier, this was the interview that I seen from one of the special features of a full moon movie. But yeah, so here we are.
Mr. Kirby, why do you think your artwork is so popular?
My artwork is popular because
connects with the ordinary person, and they can understand it very easily. And I've always meant it to be so. I've never confined my art to a particular section of humanity. I love people in general. My art reflects it, and that's the way it's always been.
And when did you start actually get your first work published?
Well, I think I began in the animation field, and I did work for small syndicates, which rapidly went out of business, and so I kept to the animation field. I was involved with the Fleischer Studios. I did Betty Boop, and many of the products that the Fleischer brothers were involved with. But it didn't last too long, and I went on to other things. I did editorial cartoons for, like I said, smaller syndicates. And at that time, there was a lot of turbulence in Europe, and that became material for my cartoons. And I absorbed that material and reflected it in my work. And so I've always tried to do the timely thing. And the timely thing, I think, is what people understand. I try to stay current, and you'll find my work throughout the years has changed with the times and has fit into the times in which it was drawn. Well, my first comic book work, it involved comics that didn't last long until I finally began to work on Captain America. I began to work on the early stuff at Marvel Comics, which is at that time known as Timely Comics. I met my former partner, Joe Simon, at that time, and we began to do very well together. We did work for DC magazines. We did work for Harvey magazines, and generally, I brought home my paycheck, and I was quite content. Well, romance comics was an innovation. I passed the newsstands every night on my way to deliver stuff to Marvel, and these love magazines would be hanging on the newsstands, and I thought nothing of it until one night it suddenly dawned on me that the love pulps were covering the newsstands, and I realized that there were no romance magazines in comics. And that's when Joe Simon and I began to turn out magazines like My Date, Young Romance, and similar magazines, and we got a very good response. Well, the monster comics were creatures of the 50s, and the monsters were not part of the comic field. Well, we're not seen in comics for quite some time until the 50s came, and I realized that there were no monster comics at all at that time, and I felt that that would be I felt that that would be a new turn in the field. And of course, it became that. I began to do monster comics. They sold very well, and I felt justified in my judgment of the times. Well, the Fantastic Four was another team adventure, and it gave me a chance to draw teenagers once more. And of course, Reed Richards was their mentor, and the characters and I had a wonderful time. I put them through all kinds of adventures. They were spectacular characters. Reed Richards could stretch himself for a mile, and the characters themselves would create the situations, and it was a kind of a series that became a classic in the field. Captain America is a product of his time. At that time, we were on the brink of war. Hitler was grabbing everything in sight, and Captain America just had to come into being because patriotic fervor was everywhere. And so Captain America became the symbol of everything that was happening in America. And of course, I had Captain America beating up on Hitler on the covers of the comic magazines, and Captain America breaking into Nazi strongholds. And he did those daring things which Americans dreamt of doing and were on the brink of doing, but we were still biding our time. And of course, the war finally happened, and Captain America still blossomed, still sold, and became the symbol of what America stood for, and he still is. My character's relationship with the reader is my own relationship. I love people in general, and that's reflected in my characters. My characters are very human, and the next guy recognizes himself. In any character I draw, no matter how fantastic that character is, the next guy will always relate to him, because despite the fact that he's incapable, the next guy is incapable of doing these superhuman tasks, his motivations and the character's motivations are exactly alike. They're human reactions, and the reader recognizes that, and he recognizes that factor even in the villains. Well, the cosmic characters represent omnipotence, and I felt that we always had contact with that kind of thing. All our myths, all our legends reflect our addiction to create legends. And I feel that's a human quality. And I felt that I had that quality within myself. And I created my own myths, my own gods, the new gods. I felt there should be new gods, since we've always been using the old gods. So I felt that it was time to create a new kind of legend for my readership. And I did. The New Gods was a product of that. And and Mr. Miracle was the product of that. And the initial characters that generated this type of magazine, I had already begun to put into my stories, and they became the foundation for these new legends. And of course, these legends stand today. They'll probably become classics that'll go into the 22nd century because they're timeless. The characters are timeless, and we'll always have that kind of character. I'm sure that someday somebody will create new legends. In fact, they're doing it already in some of the newer books. The younger people have that kind of grasp, and they're doing some wonderful, wonderful things, and I admire them immensely for it.
So that was an interview, a rare interview by Kirby himself, talking about his work in Marvel, DC, Fletcher, working in Fletcher. Of course, he was the one that created the first monster magazines. He was the first one to create those romance magazines, romance comics and monster comics that you see. They, that were around in the 50s. Kirby was responsible for that. So lastly, I want to show some art from one of his comics, 2001: A Space Odyssey. As I said before, the art is just amazing. And this was a comic based off of the Stanley Kubrick a film. I'm just gonna pick a random issue. Gonna go through issue. Let's do the first issue, actually. So here it is, the art of 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is Jack Kirby's art, of course. And as I said, it's beautiful as ever. Let me get that whole entire panel right there. Get that off. Actually, let me slow down. the lines and features of every person that he draws, just amazing, especially the lines itself. Um, and that is the first issue. So as I said, um, beautiful art by Kirby. And of course, we have this amazing looking spaceship. Of course, as I said before, classic Kirby right here. You know, all those space, every time he draws space, it's just amazing. Planets and everything. You know, it's just amazing. But yeah, that's the stream. Went through a lot for 2 hours, but rest in peace, Jack Kirby, and happy 105th birthday. And I will see you guys later. Appreciate Donna coming in. And the Cherokee Outlaw. Again, thank you for subscribing to me, both channels. I'm glad you really dig this. I really love stuff like this. I love, love, love the old comics, especially the old horror comics and sci-fi comics. Uh, all those old comics in general, like the 30s and 40s and 50s, 60s and 70s and 80s. Some of the 90s is really good, but it's a flip flop there. But yeah, I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad you guys liked it, and I'll see you guys later. And keep being positive, and I will see you guys in the next one. I haven't played this in a while.
Later, dudes.